roughly 2 years ago. And basically what we stand for is that we're a publisher of a conscience. I say we, but it is just me, but with a few interns to help me out occasionally. But yeah, so that means that the anthologies that we do, which are a massive part of what I'll do in my year, they all fundraise for charity. They all have a social aim, so poetry's great, but you know, if poetry doesn't have sort of a message or something that makes you rise up and want to feel something or want to do something, or doesn't promote any kind of you know, catharsis at the end, that's not something I want to publish. I want it to be, you know, we're looking at society, we're responding to it, it's relevant, it's current, and therefore it works in two ways, I hope. That we are promoting a social message of social change, and then we're actually affecting that change by fundraising. So that's why I say publisher of a difference or publisher of a conscience. And also the chapbooks that we publish as well. They're breaking down the stigmas of things like postpartum depression. Have a modern war poet who supported by the charity Star for Soldiers, and he suffers from PTSD. He was a helicopter pilot for 30 years. Other ones that we've got, so there's a woman in Ireland called Anne Walsh Donnelly. She's amazing, in her 50s. She came out as gay to her Irish Catholic community, and right in the heart of the sort of farming community in Ireland. And that was such a big step for her, because to release the book with me was to tell her ex-husband, you know, this is the real me. So it's things like that. It's quite an open press. It is very welcoming, and because we're tackling such intimate subjects, you know, that's important for me, that it's a safe space for people as well. So there's nothing more rewarding than starting your own small press, but it's not easy. So I've started a book which is out in January next year. It's called Small Publishing, The Do's and Don'ts. And basically, like, primarily what it is teaching people, you know, if you want to start your own magazine, or you want to start your own press, or you're just interested in independent publishing and how it perhaps works differently to traditional, then I wrote this book for those people. It also has a lot of interviews in it at the back with publishers that I admire, and just asking how they do things. So everyone does it a little bit differently. So yeah, we publish poetry and short stories. And originally I got into it because I self-published my own collection back in September 2017. And before then I wasn't really involved in like poetry spoken word groups, which is such like a strong community. Because for me poetry was so personal, and still this is the case really. My friends and family are incredibly supportive, but no one does poetry. You know, and that's sort of like, I don't really have that community. You know, obviously I do now have lovely people that I work with, but yeah, it's never something that I grew up reading it, I never grew up sharing it. So it's interesting for me to go through the whole design process and figure out my own book. And I really enjoyed it, and as I went along I realised that there was such this supportive community online. And I realised that, so this is my first design creation, which I now think is awful, but shows you where I started, because now I really enjoy book design, but at the start it was painful. But it's where the sort of fly on the wall brand evolved, because I used this fly, and I liked to write writing that was sort of observational, or which was that sort of fly on the wall perspective, and watching things go on and writing about it, or feeling like, particularly my first book that I released was about like the trauma, basically. The reason that I started writing was because unfortunately my granny Olga is an amazing poet, and you might know some of her work as well, because she was quite famous in Manchester. She's called Origami Kenyon, or Olga Kenyon, and basically she tragically got hit by a car, and it was awful for me because I was there. And you know, because we used to share poems, and so for her almost, you know, this me starting the press and me publishing my work was for her. And so actually something that I've started this year is something called the Origami Poetry Press, which is a really lovely tribute to her and the things that she loved. And it's been really uplifting actually. Later, once you're having a look at the bookstore, something which came out of the prize this year is we got these lovely postcards. She loved writing postcards because she travelled all the time and she had friends in every country. So one thing that I wanted the winners of the prize to have is their work on a postcard. So this is someone called Peril. So have a look at that later because that's something that came out of it. But yeah, publishing the first book was so positive. And I've developed this supportive network online. Definitely social media, you don't know them in person, but they become so supportive. And genuinely, even though they're international, you know that they're genuinely supporting you and what you're doing. So next, I decided that I wanted to work with these people that I met online. And so, even though I didn't call myself a publisher, I put this call out, and I said, right, I want to work for a charity, and I picked Mind because I thought about why people would want to submit their work to me. And at the time, and still, mental health is such a large topic that people, I feel like they express it through poetry a lot. So I thought if we do mental health, and I just put a call out on my blog, which at the time not many people were viewing. And for some reason, I posted on sites online, on Facebook, they have writing groups, things like that. And it just blew up. And I think because perhaps at the time, it was literally just on the cusp of many, many more publishers releasing mental health anthologies. But I think perhaps this was like a really big momentum. It was released February 2018. But yeah, getting 600 submissions from someone who genuinely, had only started like a month ago, released their own book, but didn't really know anyone. And all of a sudden I had 600 emails and I had to sort through them. And they all expected me to produce this piece of work when I wasn't a cover designer. I didn't even know Photoshop yet. I had to figure out everything. And then I had to figure out how to give 116 people their book, internationally as well. So yeah, I'm actually going to talk later about how I did that because as I go along for each anthology, it's become more refined, but the panic and the chaos, I'll talk to you a little bit about how I negotiate that later. But yes, so after this was out, and amazingly, that year, it was May 2018, there's something called the Sabotage Reviews or Saboteur Awards. And they reward independent publishers or writers who don't get the recognition of, say, the Booker Prize. It's not that level, but it's the level of, we appreciate what you're doing and your hard work. And that year it was the Me Too campaign, and it was the book of Me Too that came out, the anthology. There's probably loads more with the Me Too name now, but at the time it's the only one. So that one won Best Anthology. But I came runner-up, and I was really surprised because I was like, oh, I've only been around 3 months. And then everyone was sort of like, oh, when's your next one? How can I submit? So I went, right, okay, so I'm going to have to be a publisher now. But I really enjoyed it, so that was actually all right. So September 2018, so I'd already started setting up submissions for the next anthology, which is called Persona Non Grata. You can see it on the table. And that one was for Shelter, the homeless charity, and also Crisis Aid UK, because I wanted to combine the fact that people are displaced everywhere and there's multiple different reasons for it. So that could be that you're an asylum seeker, it could be that you're homeless from family estrangement, or from drug dependency perhaps, but there's so many different reasons that we need to be compassionate about. So that's why I chose 2 charities for that. But yeah, while that was going on, I was working for a charity as a manager, because for a long time I was doing this, in my spare time. And because I didn't have a job, which was fine, I kind of knew it was going to happen because but there was 4 jobs for 16 contracts to be extended and mine wasn't. But I'd never been a manager before, so I wasn't insulted. And so then I signed up to the Prince's Trust, because it was the perfect time. You can only sign up when you're unemployed, and they help you set up a business. So my mentor was really lovely. He worked in TV, so he didn't know anything about publishing, but he knew a lot about setting up a business and the finances, which I found quite challenging at the start. So we looked at things about how you set goals that you can constantly refer back to when you're setting up a business. So things like having your tagline, a publisher of a difference, which I then evolved to say conscience, because that was important to me. And then saying what I aimed to always do, which was to publish high quality anthologies on pressing issues, chapbooks, which is collections under roughly 30 to 40 poems, and poetry products, so Had a Disaster of a calendar and things like that, I have done them, from exceptional poets around the globe. And that's important to me too, even when I'm sometimes having difficulties because it's so expensive to involve international contributors in terms of postage, etc. There's just such talent that it feels, you know, and they've got such an audience abroad that, yeah, I really don't want to exclude them. And yeah, then it was about setting myself a niche, so I said that I wanted to become the established press for charitable anthologies, and that I wanted to be available in really successful bookshops and chains and online. And it's not everything that I've done to set up the press. I've made sure that it's all watertight, so that, you know, 10 years down the line I'm still there, rather than there can be some small press models which are just as good, but you know, they're happy to be rough and ready, perhaps not to certify it officially and various things I'll talk to you about. But yeah, I wanted the book, once my hard work had gone into it, I wanted that to last, rather than sort of doing DIY, which is fun in itself, but yeah, that wasn't for me, I decided. Yeah, so I had to think, because it's a really busy market, I wanted to know why people would come to me. So for me, I thought, you know, okay, I'm going to go for quality, I'm going to go for diversity of voices, and yeah, I'm going to go for this social message. Yeah, and it was also things like, it got me to think about what was strong about it. So I wanted to go for the quality and the fact that it was quite in your face. But the weaknesses, you know, I'm only one person, so a lot of the time people say, why aren't you doing this? And it's like, because I'm exhausted. But you know, it's nice to have suggestions, but I can't always do them. Opportunities which have been taken this year is that I started working with schools and working on the educational message, especially because a lot of them, especially the Planet and Peril project, is about, you know, educating and creating conversation. So if I can create conversation for younger generations and get them writing and make poetry a bit cool, because I think, you know, they teach very old poets or very, you know, complicated poems, which I didn't enjoy. You know, and it took me a long while to love Carol Ann Duffy, Sylvia Plath, you know, like I love them now, but I didn't when they taught me. So
really destroy them by telling you what they think about them.
Yeah, or then you analyse it, and it's, you know, like, yeah, analyse it within detail, like what metaphor is online too. You know, it wasn't for me, so I hope that at the moment, you know, I'm inspiring kids rather than, you know, giving them something which they don't quite understand yet. Like, for example, they gave me, I think it was year 8, they gave me Carol Ann Duffy's poem, which I don't know the name of, I'm really sorry, but it has the onion moon, it's all about love, and I remember thinking, yeah, but why did they give me then? Because I've not, you know, I've not felt love when year 8. Yeah, but yeah, so I like that poem a lot more now. So yeah, I was analysing what I wanted to do. Yeah, and I was also looking at branding, which for me, like, the still most effective thing to do is whenever I do a book cover, or have multiple different book covers, is I show it to my friends and family, because they're so critical. And literally, my dad, I don't think he's ever picked up a poetry book in his life and read it cover to cover, but he is the worst critic. So if I've done anything wrong with my line margins or anything, he'll spot it. And then Mum is the best at proofreading, so, you know, we've got a good unit there. And yeah, if they pick it up, then that's a good indication for me, because they wouldn't pick poetry up in a bookshop. So if they pick it up and go, this looks good, then I'll keep it, basically.